Welcome to Culture Camp, Liz. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Do you want to tell everybody who you are and some of the things that you do?
Yeah, so I'm Liz Mytton. I do lots of things. I'm creative director of Theatre in Flow, which is an artistic organisation based in Rochdale, though we work, right across the north. And we make theatre, promote artistic activities, and we work mainly with marginalised communities. We work with a lot of women, we work with a lot of people who've been through domestic violence, childhood trauma, and people in recovery. But it's actually very joyful. Yeah. It's all about how art can make a difference to your life, can be a channel for expression, and can support the process of healing, really. So that's one thing that I do. I'm also a writer, working in theatre for quite a few years, and I'm a coach and a facilitator. So somehow I juggle all these different parts of myself.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think we've connected in a number of those different ways, haven't we?
yeah.
Most recently, Liz was supporting Brilliant Thing on some work around trauma-informed communities, and your insight and support was really, really useful. So thank you. So we're coming together again for Culture Camp to think about organisational culture and what matters, what's important in the workplace. And I know you've got a few different perspectives around your own experience. So do you want to share a little bit of that?
Yeah. I kind of started my working career a few decades ago. I worked in housing.
Yeah.
Based in Bradford, working for a Black housing association. Really, really enjoyed it, but I knew from quite a young age that I had, I don't know, I had some communication struggles, let's put it that way. I've always been known as somebody who speaks their mind. I was always labelled as somebody who was quite scatty and couldn't stick to things. Also known as somebody who was quite impulsive. And it was only in my adulthood that I realised that I had ADHD.
Yeah.
But I think, it served me in many ways. I was always the go-to person. If you wanted a fresh new idea, it was Liz, because I could come up with things quite quickly. But I think at different times I would struggle because I would get bored very quickly as well. So I'd have an idea that I wanted to move on to the next thing. And, can be seen as a negative. I think it's quite a positive. I feel like I'm quite agile. But it was tricky because I think I got labelled, even in school, I got labelled as somebody who couldn't stick to things. And that had quite an impact on my self-esteem. I thought, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stick to things? Why can I never finish anything off? I can start things, but I struggle to finish. I'm not a good finisher. And it felt like a really horrible label, whereas really I just needed channeling. I needed to work as part of a team where my strengths were seen as valid, but other people could maybe do some of the finishing.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I moved from housing, and my real passion has always been writing, theatre, creating. And I went back to uni, did film and literature. I did a master's in creative writing as well. And I moved into working in theatre. And I was really lucky. About 9 years ago, I got a piece of work commissioned with the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry. It turned into quite a big show. And that was kind of my adult launch pad into a new career. But again, that wasn't enough for me because I've realised that as a person, I liked doing more than one thing.
Yeah.
So rather than lamenting and saying, why can't I stick to something? I thought, no, do you know what? I'm just one of those people who needs a portfolio career. I like being able to do lots of other things. But I think it did make me realise as well that I would have to somehow, how could I communicate this to people? How could I communicate to people that this wasn't a weakness? This was a strength, and this was kind of a chosen way of working. And I have to say that's something that's happened quite recently, probably in the past 5 years. So as it works now, I'm creative director at Theatre in Flow, and I work with a fabulous team of people. And we're all quite similar in some ways, that we have portfolio careers. Nobody's full-time here. So, we have a producer who's also an actor who's working in television and theatre. We have a partnership manager who also works in the recovery community. We have a support worker who also works in education. We have an operations director who's also a graphic designer and artist and musician. And I love that eclectic mix of experiences, you know, the fact that we get to work in lots of different situations. But I think we've also all come with our own personal stories. You know, we've all had different difficulties in our journeys in childhood and education. But I've seen that as a strength. And I really love, we talk a lot now, you know, in organisations about lived experience. I mean, we've all got lived experiences of different things. But I think just really recognising, I think I learned to recognise in myself that my difficulties as a child didn't need to hold me back, but they could actually be used as I don't know, used to kind of support my understanding of other people, used to shape new ways of working.
And it sounds like that's given you a perspective that's enabled you to bring together this group, this eclectic, as you say, group of people that reflect the people that you're working with as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Often people struggle with creating kind of inclusive work dynamics, but it feels like you've done that quite naturally by using your own experiences.
Yeah, I think some of it's been quite selfish as well, because I think I got to a point where I thought, right, I know the kind of workplace that I need.
Yeah,
I know what doesn't work for me. And, you know, over the years, I've had a very successful career. I've had lots of really brilliant jobs. But one of the things that would often trip me up is the fact that I find it really hard to contain things if I was frustrated. I think I'm going to blurt it out. I'm going to have to speak up.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's right to speak up sometimes, obviously, if you see an injustice or someone's not being treated fairly, you know, speak up. But I'd always be the person speaking up. Sure. And you know what, I need to work in an atmosphere where we encourage openness, where it's okay to speak up, where there's space given to reflect and connect, check in with each other. So I've kind of made that integral here. And, you know, we're going to be somewhere where we treat each other with respect. We're going to be somewhere where everybody's welcome. We're going to be somewhere where there's no real hierarchy, you know, where everyone's got the right to speak. And I suppose that's the kind of organisation that I always wanted to work in. So I suppose when I've had the chance to try and build something, I've been able to put that in at the foundation, really.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that they're not just words on a paper, those places to speak up and connect and respect each other.
Yeah,
so I'd love to hear about some of the practices, some of the day-to-day stuff that you do that's maybe a little bit different.
Yeah. So one of the things that I mean, I just mentioned check-in there. I think, you know, as a coach, you know, checking in is really, really important. See where people are at. You know, lots of organisations do check in, but, you know, sometimes it's just lip service. I really wanted to check in with people to see how people actually are when they arrive at work, and, you know, check what people were looking forward to in the day, what they were going to focus on, and what they wanted to have at the end of the day. But like by the end of today, you know, what we're going to have, what we want it to look like. And I think that helped to ground me sometimes, because sometimes I'd arrive at work with 15 things on my brain. But one of my colleagues saying, so Liz, what are you going to focus on today? And it's like, yeah, those things can wait. I'm going to focus on this today.
Yeah.
So I think we've built a bit of an atmosphere where we help to support and ground each other. Because I've been quite open, you know, about my struggles, and it's like, you need to bring me down, folks. If I sound like I'm going off on a massive tangent, you know, you have my permission to bring me back.
Nice. It's nice that you're able to use your leadership to give permission to keep you keep you on the level with everyone. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's important for that check-in, because I think sometimes I'll say, no, do you know what, I am going to do that today, but other times I thought, no, you're right, that can wait. That's me getting carried away. Have we all gone off on this massive tangent? And I think particularly working in a creative atmosphere, it's like, yeah, we could do this, and sometimes it needs to be, but let's all take a deep breath, that can wait. So I think that check-in is really, really important.
One of the things that I've always done with the teams that I've worked in is to do a kind of priority setting conversation every week, and be quite strict about it, and say that, you know, you're only allowed the number of priorities as number of days that you work. So if you work with us for 3 days, you're only allowed 3 priorities. So it doesn't become like a massive to-do list.
Yeah.
And I think that that can also help with this kind of over-striving, over-delivering kind of culture that we all exist within, and to kind of take the pressure off a little bit at work, and focus on what, as you say, really matters and what's important. But yeah, those check-ins are really important, aren't they?
Yeah, really important to know what, to know what each other are thinking, and just to recognize that you come to work, you do come to work, but you bring you bring other things with you, the journey to work, what's going on at home, things that are in the news. And I think particularly during COVID, it was really hard to stop that bleed. The boundaries were really blurred. People were taking work into their home space if they weren't used to doing that. And people were suffering. Lots of people were being affected by this, that pandemic. So I think it became even more crucial that we showed that kind of care for each other. What's going on.
I remember the first meeting that I had in my bedroom, and how hard I found that afterwards, and when I was going to bed, because it was still kind of in my space. And over time we've got much more used to that, haven't we? But that if you're creating safe spaces for that bleed, as you say, to happen and be contained, so that you can transition into the working day with more kind of focus, that can only be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was quite a big thing. I think the other thing that we do here, we all work annualized hours. So we all got caring responsibilities, whether it's for parents or children. And I just wanted to create a really flexible working environment. You can't always do that depending what kind of job you do.
Sure.
But I wanted to create space where we would have very busy times, and then we could have times where we could all take some time out.
Okay, tell us about that.
So annualized hours, you just calculate how many hours need to be worked over the year.
Sure.
So I don't know. So say you're on a 35 hours a week contract. You calculate it over the year, and then take off, any, the holidays and stuff. So you calculate it as one big mass. So it might end up being, right, you need to do 1,500 hours or something over the year. And then you set a few rules in place. So you'll have busy times when it's like, we definitely all need to be on this project.
But
there'll be times when you can go really low down. So you can take, say, 3 weeks off in the summer if you've got childcare and stuff, without having to book annual leave. So you just negotiate it as a team. And that can be really useful for people who got school pickups. Or if you just need a summer holiday, because one of the things that I always found tricky being employed was I've got a 10-year-old son. I just didn't have enough leave for all the holidays we had from school. And it was like, if you don't have, family support, or if you're on low income and you can't afford all the holiday clubs, what do you do? So I just wanted to create something where we could be flexible with each other and understand, some of those other factors, other things that are part of our life. So we've just all had 3 weeks off. So we kind of shut the office for 3 weeks. We were doing a few hours from home, and then we had one worker who was providing support to our service users. But it was brilliant just having 3 weeks to kind of just breathe out a bit, or even just to work 5 hours a week for a few weeks as well. And I just think it's really important for health and well-being. Not everybody wants that all the time, because some people really love the routine of working set hours. But for some people, it can just make work and that work-life balance just so much easier.
I think that's such a clever approach, because so for years and years I was like on a mission against timesheets. So I hated timesheets. I thought they were there to control you. I thought that people should be trusted to work their hours. And I kind of got pulled up on it when somebody said to me, well, I work part-time and I really need to track my hours, because otherwise I'll either overwork, or for my own accountability, I want to track my hours. And it made me really rethink timesheets. And I think actually my position before about people should just be trusted to work their hours, I think people should still be trusted, but I think it was quite a privileged point of view, because it didn't take into consideration if somebody was working less hours or maybe a lower pay grade.
Mm.
So I actually think that having that kind of that rigor around, we know how many hours we need in a year, or you could do it over any time period, I
Yeah,
suppose,
yeah,
couldn't you?
yeah,
Or for a project,
yeah,
and then you work them as you see fit.
yeah, yeah,
And also that element of negotiation with the team, so that you're, so that you're balancing the work between each
yeah,
other,
yeah.
is a really helpful practice.
Yeah, I mean, we have some non-negotiables because we have some groups that are at set times. So, for example, Wednesday evenings we work,
Mm-hmm.
but there's lots of other flexibility. So it can be, do you know what? I'm going to the dentist on Monday. I'm going to come in at 2 o'clock on Monday. How does
Yeah,
that sit with everyone? Yeah, completely fine. And
yeah,
yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off.
right. So Liz, inspire us a little bit. Tell us about some of your upcoming projects or some of
Wow.
your groups.
Inspiring. So yeah, we do lots of different things. So we have a regular group called Women's Supper Club, which meets on a Wednesday night. And this is a group for women. It's a support group for women, some women in recovery, some women who've had um, difficulties with their mental health. It's been running for 2 years. That just meets every Wednesday night. And we do lots of things. We use theatre to build confidence. At the moment, we're talking about positive relationships and the power of a positive no. So we're doing lots of work
Yeah,
around practicing saying no. We always have a meal, and it's just a really fun group. So I just love the way that's growing at the minute, and we're looking for our own venue so we can feel like we've really, really got a home. So that's wonderful. I've been supported by Touchstones for 2 years, but obviously they're going through some regeneration at the minute. So we've
yeah.
had to step out for a while, but we'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
We're developing a project at the moment called Blue, which is a project for global majority women who are living in Rochdale.
Yeah.
Obviously, Rochdale's quite a diverse place. Apparently,
Mm-hmm.
there are 90 languages spoken here. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't name 90
I did hear a
languages.
story about when the tower blocks were there. There was one of the tower blocks had 70 languages spoken in the tower block, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's a diverse.
incredible when you think about it. You think, what are these languages?
Yeah,
I'm
you
really
couldn't list
intrigued.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, but but yeah, so while Rochdale is a very diverse place, I moved here in August 2020 from Bristol.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's because I moved in the middle of the pandemic, but when I arrived here as a Black woman, I thought, where are all the Black people? Where are they all? And I remember looking online and thinking, yeah, it's supposed to be this really diverse place, but I feel really alone here. But I think that's possibly the season as well. But I think with it being a small town, there's not always those kind of central hubs that you get in larger cities
Mm.
where people of colour meet or people from particular communities. My heritage is Jamaican. And I think, where are all the Jamaicans in Rochdale?
Yeah.
So, and with that comes a fair amount of anxiety. I mean, again, referring to the pandemic, Black women, Black people were impacted a
Yeah.
lot more than other communities. South Asian communities were impacted quite highly by COVID as well. And there's a lot of anxiety around health and well-being and access to health. And I think, how is this affecting people? We need to come together. So this project Blue is about depression and about how depression is processed and treated and just examined in Black communities, really.
Mm.
There are cultural considerations. There are some, I don't know, there are some difficulties sometimes in talking about mental health in the Black community. And there's also some stigma and problems with access as well when it comes to medical interventions of mental health services. So we're bringing together a group of women who are migrants or kind of second generation migrants to talk about mental health. And it's going to be a kind of street performance.
Oh, I didn't expect you to say that.
Yeah, it's going to be a street. So we're going to do 3 months of rehearsal and a street performance so we can just be visible in our blueness. And yeah, so that's something that we're working on at the minute, and we're kind of partnering with a few different people around that, just to normalise conversations around mental illness in the Black community, particularly amongst Black women. So that's a big project. We hopefully next year, we've been talking for quite a while about doing a project around textiles, partly because all our staff are textile obsessives. We all love sewing,
Mhm.
we all love fashion. We
I
run
did
an
a textiles degree, if you're looking for
event.
another
Yeah.
person.
Well, we're having conversations with lots of people about this.
Yeah.
As you might know, we run an event called the Clothing and Story Swap. We've been
Mhm.
running it for 18 months now, where we encourage women to donate their pre-loved clothing.
Yeah.
And we run an event every quarter where we basically just redistribute these clothes. We set it up like a vintage shop, and everybody who comes can just take 10 items of clothing. No money changes hands. And it's all about sustainability, about reducing kind of textile waste.
Sure.
Massive issue for the environment, the textile industry. So we're just trying to get people to recycle their clothing. And but also, if you bring clothes with you on the day, you get more tokens. So if you bring 10 items with you, you can take away 20 items. So it's kind of a bit like Vinted, but for free kind of thing. And that's been going, it's been really successful. We've had hundreds of women who've attended, and a real mixture of women, women who have been my colleagues or women I work with in the community, and women who've come from hostels, women who've been on the streets. It's been a real mixture. And then we encourage people to tell stories about their clothes, their lucky pants that, always get them the job or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We have a bit of cake and tea. But from the back of that, I was thinking, yeah, it's a great first step what we're doing. We gather lots of clothing, we give lots of clothing away. We're hopefully impacting people and helping them to think about sustainability and about not always having to buy new clothing. But I thought I wanted to go a step further and really get us to have some conversations about where our clothing comes from.
Okay.
And if I was to look in my jeans now, I think my jeans are they were made in Bangladesh. And I was just thinking about this diverse city with its 90 languages, diverse town, sorry. And how often, we're not connecting with those very people who make our clothes. I thought there'll be some auntie in Rochdale whose cousin is making my jeans in Bangladesh, perhaps. And how we could be very disconnected. People think, oh, well, I bought my top from New Look. It's English. Well, no, it was probably made in Asia somewhere, in a factory. And I just really wanted just to have some of these conversations about where our clothes come from and about how much we spend on clothing. Because if our jeans only cost us £7, how much was somebody paid for that? Were they even paid at all? But as another layer, looking at our diverse town, lots of people like me or people from South Asian backgrounds, our mothers and fathers came here to work in the textile industry. Both my parents worked in textiles in Manchester when they first arrived from Jamaica. And how it's a massive part of our heritage. A lot of people of colour in this country from Asia or the Caribbean, their families, learned to sew as teenagers. My mum learned to sew on an industrial sewing machine, and she was really proud to come and work in the UK. But when she came here, she thought, "Oh, I'm not welcome here. How bizarre! I thought this was my country." So we're creating a piece of work called Textiles, where we're going to set up a factory. And encourage people to come a bit kind of sewing bee style, learn some sewing skills from people of different generations over 10 weeks. So it's kind of like a course, but also gather stories and ultimately deliver a theatrical performance. So people will get to come and be part of the live factory, do some sewing, but also be around actors who are performing and sharing some of these testimonies really of what life has been like working in the
it's a social history, isn't it? It's a living social history.
Absolutely. And we're hoping to get some of the sewing machines from the store at Touchstones, because they've got tons and tons of sewing machines, and we've been donating some other sewing machines. So I'm looking forward to this sound of machines and hand stitching.
And you can hear that kind of magpie ethos in how you're talking, and I love how you put together these projects that are about very everyday things like food and clothes and health, and mix them with stories and connection and people, and teach us, society, and the people that you work with about history and about heritage and about the future that we want to create together. It's really exciting, Liz. I love hearing about your work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important as well, because for me, we're not just one thing. We can be lots of different things at the same time. and the way we interact and engage with things is different because of our multi-layered experience.
Yeah.
So I just want to create more space and opportunities for people to engage with each other and recognise that in some ways we're very similar, but in some ways we walk through the world in very different ways.
Yeah. Fab. Thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
Where can people find out about all of these brilliant projects and your work?
Yeah, they can check out our social media, or they can go to our website, which is theatreinflow.com. It's got our contact details on. You can send us a message, and we always try and respond to people, or look me up on LinkedIn, Liz Mytton.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Liz. We'll
You're
pop all
welcome.
those links below and in the workbook, and I'm definitely coming along to the next clothes swap. So I'll see you there.
Yeah, good to see you. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.